Good morning from the south of France and from Circuit Paul Ricard here in Le Castellet, just a stone's throw away from the French Riviera, the Côte d'Azur, and a very, very nice day weather-wise as well. Set to be, well, north probably of 30 degrees later on today for both racing on Saturday and tomorrow, which is the main event, if you like, of the weekend, the 4 hours of Le Castellet. But there is very much a ladder system as part of the ACO rules racing set. We also have on the bill the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the Ligier European Series. And after qualifying and free practice yesterday, it is a bright and early start with air temperature at 25 degrees Celsius for their first race of this, which is Heat 3 of the year. We started off in Barcelona in April, and then the one-off single race at Le Mans on the full Circuit de la Sarthe during the test weekend on the 4th of June. So we stay in France for races 4 and 5 of this year, and these both form Heat 3 of the 2023 season. My name's Johnny Palmer, joined as always by the editor of dailysportscar.com, Graham Goodwin. And this track is really quite technical, Graham. It's deliberately so because it's morphed, although it was built initially as a Grand Prix venue in the 70s, it has morphed into a test track until fairly recently, and is still used by a number of teams. Sadly, we don't have a French Grand Prix in 2023 here, but we do, as always, have the European Le Mans Series and all the support categories that come with it.
We do, and good morning, everybody. It is, I'm sure, a blessed relief for all the teams here to be circulating in 25 degrees rather than something 10 degrees north of that.
True.
As we've had for most of the weekend. This is your grid.
Yeah, Daniele Casaniga, which is a new, well, two new drivers to conjure with for this weekend. We'll start from pole position alongside Simone Riccitelli, and then it is George King together with the all-Romanian-driven car alongside, starting on the outside of the second row. Moving a little further back, Dimitri Engelbert and Dylan Young, a new name to the championship as well. But before we get there, actually, Ian Aguilera will start alongside Louis Rossi for RLR and Le Douce Arbre, respectively. Dimitri Engelbert for Pegasus Racing, with Dylan Young, as mentioned, for Smart Driving. Then David Cosenel, who is Dimitri Engelbert's teammate in the sister Pegasus car, number 16. And then it is Wei Yu Wang in the Monza Garage number 11 car. Lance Fenton in the 1 for Team Virage, starts 11th alongside Max Meyer in the best of the RLR M Sport cars for the second category, being the JS2 R category for GT derived machines, and Max sharing as always with the racing Reverend Simon Butler. Following that, Julien Schell for Pegasus Racing, Julien Lemoine, who had a great result at Le Mans in the ANS Motorsport car, David Rodrigo for LR Motorsport, starts alongside Jacques Nicolet for Le Douce Arbre, and then it's Gilles Pouret and Farid Ali at the back, 95 and 14 respectively. 5.7 kilometres this circuit, really tight and twisty at the start around the Virage du L'Hôtel corners, and then that takes you onto the very long Mistral straight, a cracking opportunity to get a slipstream on another car in front, and ideally then a good run into Senior corner, but it has to be fully committed there if you're about to overtake through that rapid right-hander. Then the double right-hander, followed by the intricate final sector itself that leads back onto the start-finish straight. There's nowhere quite like Le Castellet with the mountains in the background, and we are about to go racing for the first time this weekend for the ACO rules categories, with Daniele Casaniga starting for HB Racing by Monza Garage in the number 4 car to the right side of the front row. So you're looking out for that machine then with the orange nose, as now the battling begins already, and jutting out from a long way back, George King, I reckon, on the inside line, almost up the inside there, the Casaniga car, but didn't quite make it. So the number 04 car, as it appears to be numbered right now, Casaniga, getting a good run for that first first run down towards the virage du L'Hotel, although on his inside line, Simone Riccitelli can't quite take the race lead, and a massive lock-up there, Graham, in the midfield.
Yeah, all very, well, it was very wide and wild, wasn't it, through turns 1, 2 and 3, but it all come through okay here. The JS P4 is beginning to make that gap we expect ahead of the JS2 Rs. Healthy grid of the little prototypes here, 12 of them. Very little out of position at the back of the grid. But already, no real gaps at all, are there? From first down to about 8th or 9th position, and still looking to take advantage. Tight and technical this lap, Johnny, at the start and at the finish. Get onto the Mistral straight, and this is what we're expecting to see, and that is a pass for the lead, a successful pass for the lead. Through goes the team Virage car, number 60 car, George King.
So almost there. Oh no, there's contact at senior corner, and I did say that was going to be a huge corner on the first lap. Simone Riccitelli will now be the new leader then in the double droite de Beausset. So the 0-4 car with a huge spin at the first attempt at senior corner. Thought they'd both got through safely initially, but it's Daniele Casaniga who spins at high speed, and thankfully the higher friction asphalt out there on the driver's left, where that was able to arrest the speed suitably before Casaniga found anything solid. But George King, the other car involved, so it is all change at the front now, with Simone Riccitelli leading for LR Motorsport from Minaire Stefan, and Dimitri Engelbert escalated to third position when he started on something like the 4th or 5th row, Graham.
Yeah, it looks like George King has come through at about 12th position. Casaniga, we can see exactly, but he's gone right to the back of the field. You're quite right, that kind of high grip tarmac coloured bands that make this place so photogenic did its job there. Bit of a lock up and a spin there from one of the Pegasus racing cars.
And that's David Cosenel, who looked like he got turn 1 all wrong. I don't think there was contact, although there was a car pretty close at the turning point, and struggling for grip there, it would appear. Simone Riccitelli tippy-toeing his way through turns 3 and 4 at Virage de l'Hotel. And now through that ongoing, almost never-ending turn 5, the right-hander, which then flicks back at 6 and 7 and leads you onto the Mistral straight. We have used the chicane here in previous years, but I'm not sure ever for the Ligier European Series. So instead, it is foot to the boards all the way down this very long Mistral straight, and ducking out from the slipstream again, Minaire Stefan, been a race winner this year, neatly placed in the championship, and gets the overtake done well before senior. The problem with that is that Riccitelli's going to start fighting back now and has the inside line.
It's exactly what we saw, but this time without the contact on lap 1, Johnny. Just goes to show the slipstream really works these little cars, doesn't it, here at Paul Ricard? And it works well enough that they can be done twice in the space of the Mistral straight. Up the inside again for the Virage man, but not quite the room to do it.
Almost at Beausset, but not quite then for the Minaire Stefan driven Virage car, the yellow and black with the orange stripe. But it's the dark blue and orange of LR Motorsport and Simone Riccitelli that leads. It was Riccitelli and his teammate Jacopo Mazza who took the victory at Le Mans at the start of last month. So they are very well placed in the championship as the 0-4, not number 4 as listed on my entry list. They're going with the Chip Ganassi style way of numbering cars. It has to make an early pit stop well out of the window after that dramatic spin for Daniele Casaniga.
My suspicion is that he's got tyres down to the canvas after that dramatic spin, and 0-4, you can see the background there is rolling again. Another lock up there for the Virage car.
Yeah, so out of Verrerie corner, there's another lock-up in the background as well, a huge one. So these cars chewing through tyres, and early in the race when perhaps the Michelins have not quite got up to full temperature or not towards their operating window, shall we say. It's a warm day anyway, so ambient's not really a problem, but track temperature still steadily building. Nice tussle for third place, I should say, developing as well between Dimitri Engelbert in the sky blue fronted Pegasus racing car, and he's being chased by the white and orange and black machine of Ian Aguilera in the RLR M Sport number 75.
Yeah, that's the car we'll see Heitor Caragiuli, our 2022 JS2 R champion, climbing aboard at the halfway point. Still this battle for the lead. Again, the slipstreams work, goes to the inside this time. Later in the lap, learning fast, these drivers, just where this can be done, and again it's a change.
So this is an intriguing battle for this race in isolation, but also for the championship, because Minaer Stefan, who's now gone back into the lead, leading by 18 points over the car he's just overtaken, Simone Riccitelli, that Simone shares with Jacopo Mazza. And that win at Le Mans last time out really has put them back into the championship fight, almost side by side as the third and fourth place cars turn left through turn 11, heading towards Virage du Pont and Virage du Lac at the end of the lap then. So working their way through the lingering right-hander at turn 12, and a lock-up as well for Ian Aguilera, who very nearly ended up in the pit lane there as the pits divert off to driver's right. But way too early to be heading for the pits just yet. There does need to be a pit stop and a driver change after 27 minutes of this hour-long race, plus the extra lap.
Almost 7 minutes of those 27 at the moment. This is the other RLR M Sport, Max Meyer, leading comfortably with Julian Schell, the team principal of Pegasus Racing in JS2R. But the action at the moment seems to be, Johnny, all about JS P4 at this stage of the race. Somebody gets themselves sorted out. Those cars, by the way, that got themselves into trouble. Daniel Casaniga has rejoined, he's back in 18th place, but as I speak has just pitted again. Pegasus Racing's number 16 car, David Cossonel, dropped back into the JS2Rs. So plenty of troubles here for the JS P4s to start this race, whereas looking where George King has recovered well. Was down in 12th position, he's recovered to 6th at the moment, showing great pace.
Cossonel, another one to spin early on in the race, so yeah, he's working his way back through the GT derived cars, the JS2 Rs, that category currently led by Max Meyer. It is side by side again between the third and fourth place cars, with the inside line being held by Dimitri Engelbert, the blue and white car, and in behind is Ian Aguilera. But it's similar to the race lead, really, in that each in the duo are choosing to lead in certain parts of the lap, and it shows how even these cars are. They're all exactly the same as one another. It just depends on how the teams have set them up individually. But Virage, LR, RLR M Sport and Pegasus Racing, together with Smart Driving as well, 5 different teams occupying those first 5 positions.
Absolutely right. This is the first time on lap 3. First time we've not seen a lead change on the Mistral Straight. Leo Stefan is fending off the close attentions of Simone Riccitelli. That pair come to the end of lap 4 now, and it's our fastest lap of the race for the Italian in pursuit. It's a 2 minutes .617.
Yeah, the 2 minutes .8 for the car that leads, so they are trading fastest lap times. 1 or 2 laps being observed as well, though, for breaching track limits, including for Ray Yu Wang, who is driving the Monza Garage car in 7th place, the number 11 car. That wasn't the best placed of the Monza Garage cars, of course. That was Daniele Casaniga, the HP by Monza Garage car, which lost all those positions after the contact at senior corner. But progress report there, still in the pits, I'm afraid. So came in once, then did another lap, and then has come back into the pits, and clearly not happy with that car. That might be it for race 1 for the number 4 pole sitting car.
And it was Ray Yu Wang that was the latest victim of George King. It is pursuit back up the order, 6th place, 12 seconds back from the battle ahead of this pair. Again, side by side, Ian Aguilera goes to the outside this time. Is there a way around there before the daunting seam corner? I think the answer is there almost was, but just I was about to call it there was, but there wasn't.
They were definitely alongside, but Engelbert had the inside line then for senior corner. They're now at Beausset, and Engelbert allowing the front of that car just to wash out very slightly as the Casanigas speak to one another. It's great to have those Italian drivers as part of the championship, originally from Monza, so racing clearly will be in their blood with such a historic track just down the road. But unfortunately for them, their initial experience of the Ligier European Series has not ended well. They will have another stab at it, of course, later on today, though.
I'm sure there'll be much happier moments for them. It's a garage base, close indeed to the Temple Speed circuit. More or less next door to where we pick up our accreditation.
Ah, yes.
But, Ligier Stefan. Slightly fishtails into and through turn 1. Does look edgy in these cars. So Ligier Stefan, Simone Riccitelli, Dimitri Gilbert, Ian Aguilera, Dylan Young, and then George King is taking 10th out of this lead battle, by the way, the young Brit. After that drama on that one. Can he get back there in time is an entirely different question. Aguilera still looking for a way by here, Johnny.
And very nearly managed to sneak by at turn 3, which is a significant stop there. So you've worked your way through the chicane at the start of the lap at very S-bend, and then hard onto the brakes after that short, sharp straight into turns 3, 4 and 5 that come in quick succession. Now a very good run for Simone Riccitelli, up alongside Ligier Stefan, and actually just ahead by a nose. The problem is, has he got enough now to be able to turn across the bows? No, he hasn't, because that slightly uphill final section of the Mistral Straight was favouring Romanian driver Ligier Stefan for Team Virage, who just about defends for another corner. But Riccitelli has got the measure on him.
Yeah, seeing debris in the middle of the track at turn 8 at the moment on our screens. And new fastest lap of the race this time. George King still there in 6th place. In fact, he's up to 5th place now. He's gone past Dylan Young.
Race start was so good for Ligier Stefan, tucked in behind Daniele Casaniga, and in fact Stefan having to go fully off the road there, straddling the blue paint between the 2 white lines to try and sniff out an inside line. But Daniele Casaniga, the more experienced of the 2 Casaniga family members, I think I called them brothers a moment or 2 ago, I beg pardon, they're father and son, and it is Nicolo who was due into the car after son Daniele at about the halfway point. So Nicolo will have to wait for his bronze time later on in the race. That was the big moment at senior corner as the 0-4 and the George King car made contact at senior. There was a touch for David Cosenel as well in the 16. Just seeing that from a different angle there, and that's what forced Cosenel, the Frenchman, into a spin at the first corner. So Ligier Stefan in the Virage colours, still just about ahead of Simone Riccitelli, and there's no change in the order for 3rd and 4th either.
So 13 minutes in, halfway towards the pit window opening for these cars. And still closely for Ligier Stefan leads 10ths ahead of Simone Riccitelli. Then there's about an 8-second gap now, so their pace has been very good indeed here for this pair. Another battling pair, Dimitri and Gilbert in the first of the Pegasus racing cars, and RLRM Sports 75 in the hands of Ian Aguilera. Goes to the outside this time, and he's going to make the move, I think. He's done it.
Cracking, but has he again done it too early, Ian Aguilera, because there's the opportunity in the final third of the Mistral to get more of a slipstream, but it's not going to work for Dimitri Gilbert. That would have been a brave overtake to the outside of senior corner as a repass, effectively. So Ian Aguilera has now properly cemented 3rd position, and there's a change for the lead, as I say that as well, because from a long way back it appeared, only caught that in the very last moment, but at turn 11, darting up the inside there, came Simone Riccitelli on Ligier Stefan to retake the race lead for LR Motorsport. What I was about to say was, if Ian Aguilera can now stay in 3rd position for a few corners, can he start to open up a little bit of a gap? There was maybe some, there's definitely some confusion around the tail ender of Farid Ali, who is still circulating the number 14 car, but all over the curbs, in fact, Simone Riccitelli. The lead up to that overtake, questionable track limits perhaps then, Graham?
Yeah, I do wonder whether or not that will be regarded as being an overtake using well, parts of this circuit which are not circuit, let's put it that way. Also notice, by the way, when we get another look at that battle for 3rd place, closing in on that battle is George King. So he's made good ground. There we go. For all the first 5 cars in the same shot there.
Yep.
11.3 seconds is the gap between them. So it's the number 10 car leading JS2 R, Max Meyer. Max has, what is that, an 8-second advantage over Julien Schell. And Julien, he's no mug at the wheel of a race car.
True enough.
European Le Mans Series and elsewhere aboard LMP2 cars in the past.
If you don't know the name Max Meyer, well, you're forgiven, because he's only 17 from Alicante and did a season of F4 Spain last year, but that was straight out of karting He's really an early talent to be unearthing, as you can tell, and first sports car experience with potentially a very big future in front of him. Still more jostling, and now a new leader again, Ligier Stefan. He's been there before, of course, but he's back in front of Simone Riccitelli, just showing how crucial the toe down the Mistral in these JS P4s, certainly, how crucial it is.
Yeah. Max Meyer, by the way, you were just explaining his very limited background in the sport, but boy, he's got pace, hasn't he? But he may be in a bit of trouble. Reports to the stewards, track limits, turn 3. Okay. That could be very significant at the end of this race.
Certainly could. So turn 3, that first of 3 corners altogether, the right, the left and the right, early in the lap, where it is important, obviously, to stay within the white lines, but if you're battling with traffic, which actually Max isn't at the moment, because as you've described, he's stretching a very decent lead over Julien Schell for Pegasus Racing. So it shows how hard he's pushing, but that's no excuse. You have to still stay in the boundaries of the track and the white lines, even though it's very tempting indeed to cut a corner here or there, particularly at the Castellet, because there's that much open land left and right, threading their way through the blue bands and the red banded areas of the higher friction asphalt then. And this is turn 3, which is where Max Meyer has been a little bit wayward.
Oh, the Virage car went wide there, and the LR Motorsport car, I think, here is going to be right with him down the Mistral Straight, and also in the mix here, having caught Dimitri Engelbert now, is George King after that drama on lap 1, Johnny. The lead battle ended with both cars spinning out. George King has made that recovery.
So we've got an interesting dynamic at the moment with Ligier Stefan and Simone Riccitelli, who will pull out of the draft again and be pretty much door mirror to door mirror. And overtake, in fact. So back to the race lead will go the LR Motorsport car. But this car has 2 silver-rated drivers in it. Riccitelli at the wheel at the moment, and his teammate Jacopo Mazza. There's also been a change with George King having caught up with Dimitri Engelbert. He's now managed to overtake him. However, Engelbert's not going to take that line down. He'll be handing over to his silver teammate later on, who is Anthony Nara. And up the inside will go Engelbert to retake 4th position. In the meantime, Ian Aguilera is stretching his legs in 3rd. 10 seconds to be added at the end of the race to car 10 for not respecting the track limits. Now, if Max Meyer can build a gap to 10 seconds, he's almost there. In fact, it's 9.1, then that shouldn't actually affect the result. However, car 10 will have Simon Butler in it in the second half, so he's the bronze, and therefore things will change a little bit, because Simon, by his own admission, is not as quick as Max Meyer. Not many people are in the JS2 Rs, in fact. So Max now even more impetus to push on like crazy and try and open up a bigger gap than the current 9 seconds.
Yeah, George King trying to get by for a second time the number 17 car. Dimitri Engelbert, is there going to be room there? That's a brave place to try. Goes to the outside of turn 1. The inside, rather, turn 1. Gets by there, that'll be some move, but I think he's done it, you know. Well done, young George King. Twitches through the turn. He'll now focus his attentions on Ian Aguilera, who is, what, 2 seconds up the road from this. But George King certainly got the pace here, Johnny.
There was a huge move, well, moment for the car, as you described it, a twitch, but it was well dealt with by George King. Putting the car in the middle of the track now for turn 5, as Engelbert catches a bit more curb than George King. And although you're cutting a bit of the corner off, that's actually not great when you're trying to keep the car as stable as possible. So the cleaner route for George King, I would say, will inch out the gap again by maybe a half a tenth. As now Riccitelli's all over the curbs. Ligier Stefan not giving him an awful lot of racing room, but there was just about a car width there. They're almost banging doors as well, heading up the hill towards Senior Corner. Who's going to turn in first? It's Ligier Stefan, but they may both run out wide at Senior. Up the inside now will try and go Riccitelli, but Ligier Stefan has that covered off. He's already made one move, so probably best not to make another in the braking area. Riccitelli, in certain areas of this lap, does appear to be a lot quicker than the Stefan car.
This is a proper duel now, isn't it? Double yellows, by the way, at turn 14. We'll see what that's about shortly, because our attention fully drawn right now by this battling pair. And again, the LR Motorsport car of Simone Riccitelli almost alongside, looking for any chance he can possibly get it, Johnny. How well matched this pair?
Great to watch, and actually it should continue on this scrap, even the other side of the pit stops, because Jacopo Mazza, the Swiss driver, will take over, and he's got good speed as well. Another silver-rated driver sharing with Simone Riccitelli. Gaps possibly as big as it's been all race now, at 0.4 of a second as they cross the line to complete 10 laps. 20 minutes of the race gone. And this year, I have to remind myself, it's 60 minutes and that's it. There is no extra lap bolted on to the end. So 60 minutes straight race with pit stops roughly half distance.
It will be, with a correction from race control, 10 seconds added to the next pit stop of the number 10 car. So we'll have a real world result at the end of this, not added at the end of the race. One thing this is doing, Johnny, this battle between the two, is slowing them down. They're in the 203s, the cars behind 201s. In the case of George King, 2 minutes, 0.791. So George King, what, 3 laps ago, was 12 seconds back to the lead, under 8 now, but we're counting down towards that pit stop window.
Max Meyer, big ping for track limits again on this lap, and that's somewhere in the first sector, so could very easily be at turn 3 once again. So the team somehow need to communicate to him, you've already got 10 seconds to be soaked up in the next pit stop. Please stop doing that, otherwise the penalty will get worse. It's incremental, but the increments get larger the further you, or the more you transgress through the race.
This is the 86 car. This is Jacques Nicolet. And behind the Ligier mark, taking over the brand from the fabled Guy Ligier. And it's been quite the week for the Ligier mark this year. Not only these JS2Rs, JS P4s, the JS P320s we'll see later in the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series this weekend, but now with a top-class contender providing the chassis for the brand new Lamborghini SC63. They'll be seen in action in 2024 in both the FI World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. What a handsome beast that thing is.
And as you said a couple of days ago, the family is now complete, because that ladder system all the way through ACO Rules Racing. We were missing a Ligier in the still relatively new hypercar class, and obviously there's been this influx of new manufacturers into hypercar in the World Endurance Championship in 2023, set to be added to again by Lamborghini and the chassis built by Ligier. So exciting times, certainly for fans of Raging Bulls, but also of this French manufacturer as well. We're delighting in with this whole race, with cars across 2 different categories built entirely by Ligier. Max Meyer has checked out by just north of 12 seconds, but remember that's effectively only 2. But what about this scrap now for, is this 3rd, 4th and 5th? It is, and
it's Julien Montnemoine has gone by, sorry, apologies, it is the David Rodrigo in the LR Motorsport car has gone by Jacques Nicolet. Gilles Perret still there as well. Okay. And that's how that happened. Bit of a wild and scribbly moment from the elder statesman of Ligier, and there was a contact on the way out of that.
There was. So that's what gave the primer coloured with the red detailing that car the advantage briefly of Jacques Nicolet to get ahead of David Rodrigo. But, sorry, Rodrigo now behind Jacques Nicolet then. So the Le Dusard car number 86 got back in front. So it's actually for 4th, 5th and 6th in JS2 R. Gaps growing between Max Meyer, who leads that category, over Julien Schell, and the gap between Schell and Julien Lemoine is about 8 seconds. But what it's doing is leaving all the cars that are not currently on the podium trying to fight amongst themselves for 4th.
Nicolet back ahead of that battle. Let's see how that one happened. Well, he was already by there, so what happened here?
So Rodrigo going for a move up the inside. I think they just avoided the touch.
They changed position, I think, on the Mistral that time again. Yeah. Jacques Nicolet, it was in the early part of the lap that he went wide, and there was contact as he rejoined. But those possessions have been exchanged again.
Well, at the end of the replay, the grey and red car was ahead, but we had seen them since the replay, if you like, with Jacques Nicolet in front of Rodrigo again. And Rodrigo trying to force his way ahead of the Frenchman into the final corner. That didn't quite work out.
Cracking scrap here, and by the way, in the background, you'll also see it's not just a Virage car leading, it's a Virage car in 3rd, because George King has caught and passed in Aguilera. some comeback drive from him. He's now under 7 seconds back from this battle, but we are, I think, at the end of this lap, Johnny, going to be into the pit stop window. It's either this lap or the one after.
So George King, there he is in the colours of Virage. It's very similar paint scheme, of course, to Michelin Stefan's car, but Michelin Stefan running with the pink door mirrors. Number 48 ahead of the 7 LR Motorsport car is Simone Riccitelli, who's right with the race leader again, and they are about to catch Farid Ali. So that may put a fly in the ointment as well with the Inter-Europol competition colours. So through senior they will go now, and they will deal with the back marker probably both together. Yes, into Beausset. And Farid Ali doing entirely the gentlemanly thing there, moving well off the racing line to allow the race leaders through so they can continue to scrap. And we are a little too early for these two to head into the pits. It'll have to be next time by for Stefan and for Riccitelli.
But after them, anybody else I think should be in the window. They're going to be very close here in this lap. 27 minutes, of course, when the pit stop window opens. We're within a minute of that now. RR getting ready. Another team with representatives throughout this bill. No RR cars in the in the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year. It's unusual for them. Focused on this Ligier European Series and the European Le Mans Series.
Little look at the inside for Simone Riccitelli, but he was never close enough there for that to be an actual overtaking chance. So through Verrerie they go again. There's a slide from Michelin Stefan as the camber of the road beneath him changes very slightly. There's an awkward exit out of turn 2 because the road really drops away from you and you have to gather the car up before it runs out of your control. And then in the middle of the road again for Michelin Stefan, but he's left the gap for Riccitelli. Really late on the brakes.
Big contact there. And debris from the right rear of the leading car.
Do you know, I don't think there was contact. That was a bollard that was going across the road. Yeah, there is a bollard that sits on the apex of turn 5. I think Riccitelli just about anchored up in time there. Like to see it again to be sure, but the thing that went skittling across the road.
I think you're absolutely right. Oh, it was Riccitelli, wasn't it? He caught that. You're absolutely right. Good call.
Yeah, so that bollard, which will be replaced at some point, probably not in this race.
Not immediately.
But it'll be hopefully there for free practice 2 of the European Le Mans Series cars, which is next up.
Lead Battle is catching this trio as well. So this is going to be an interesting moment. Ligier has fended off the attack. 95, by the way. The last of these cars is going to get drive-through penalty for abusing track limits. As the first of our pit stoppers is the number 1 car, Lance Fenton. Steps out. Kevin Madsen it will be that steps in. Winners at Le Mans. And also on pit lane, David Castellet, who is ploughing on after early race woes. Confirmation there of the drive-through penalty for the 95 car. There it is, the 95. And we've got other pit stoppers here. And includes the leader, Stefan rather, down pit lane. So that means that Simone Riccitelli carries on and will lead this race.
Yep, so more pit stops taking place with the number 1 car still waiting in its position, and the 2 American drivers exchanging driving duties. The reason why the car's not being waved back into the race is that these pit stops are done to a minimum reference time, so that everything should comfortably be done within that time limit. And it means that teams that perhaps are new to sports car racing and new to the work that has to be done in a hurry during a pit stop, they can at least do it at a relatively relaxed speed. And that builds them nicely into something like the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and then on into European Le Mans Series, where there are still reference times at LMP3 level in the ELMS as well. At least a couple of the stops have to be done to a minimum reference time. So you'll see that really not a lot has been done on some of those cars. The Lollipop Man just standing there, allowing the time to tick by.
So number 60 car of George King, the second now with Michelin Stefan on pit road. Thumbs up. Right-hand drive on these Legiers, right? That's always been the case in the modern era.
Does that mean the Lambo's going to be right-hand drive as well when it comes out?
That's a good question.
Very similar paint scheme for this car, of course, RLR, similar to the Ian Aguilera, number 75, which hasn't yet made a stop. But this is the 10 car that will have to take 10 extra seconds. Now what's happening here? Aguilera goes for a spin, and that is the 86 car of Jacques Nicolet, the blue and white JS2 R. Have no idea how they were ending up at that sort of angle, but was there contact perhaps prior to us cutting to that?
Well, George King was already off the track ahead of those two, so the two of them trying to deal with traffic, and they've had real dramas down at turn 10. Let's have a look and see what happens here. George King to the outside. That was substantial contact on Jacques Nicolet. He goes off track now, or does he? This is where he goes off track. And there's a second contact. And then Ian Aguilera gets caught up in the incident.
Yeah.
Now that's going to be an interesting one for race control to determine. One. That was the second contact, wasn't it? Lucky he didn't catch the back of the number 75 car.
So there was contact coming out of turn 11 between George King and Jacques Nicolet, and then more contact the other side of turn 11. That's the LR Motorsport car now going very, very slowly of Simone Riccitelli, who was leading the race. He hasn't even come in for a pit stop yet. And these cars will not need to be refueled halfway through. They're not, because the tank easily takes 60 minutes worth of fuel, so it's not a propulsion problem, as in it's run out of fuel. But quite what that's been caused by, I have no idea. George King, then,
I think he leads the race.
Is the new race leader, despite, just want to get confirmation of that, well, he was trailing the LR Motorsport car by 6 seconds. He will have, I'm sure, mopped all of that back up again. Also, George King hasn't yet made a stop. Just cut out, didn't it?
It did. It seemed to, in a bit of a slightly wide moment. Was that cause or effect? But and that's George King, I think, going through there.
Yeah, agreed. So the 60 car rather battered and bruised after two separate bits of contact with Jacques Nicolet around about here on the racetrack. So that put George King at completely the wrong angle to head through turn 12, and poor old Ian Aguilera, who was minding his own business behind in avoidance of Jacques Nicolet's spin, then spun himself trying to go to the right, but the car and the tyres weren't going to obey a rapid turn.
The one plus for Ian Aguilera, and now for Haytham Caragiuli, who'll climb aboard that car, is there was no contact for that car. It was avoidance.
Yeah, true.
The 1 and the 50 car here. This is the battle for 7th position, and this is the Team Virage car of Kevin Madsen with Steve Zakia in the number 50 Le Desarbe car. Still yellow flags and still trouble here for the 7 car.
So yeah, Kevin Madsen having taken over from his fellow American teammate Lance Fenton, but Riccitelli's running wide once again. Still not seen him into the pits yet.
No lights on that car either.
He's only got about a minute or so to get into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop, and to the right time. Now, he may well have peeled off at the end of that lap, if he can get the car going again, of course. And that is now the only outstanding car that owes us a pit stop, with George King now in the pit lane, having come in as the race leader, and by 46 seconds, Riccitelli is now in as well.
Yeah, he's made pit lanes. What is the problem there?
So the pit window running from 27 minutes to 34 minutes into the race. Riccitelli did make it by about 30 seconds. 29 Julien Schell was the JS2 R race leader by the time it made its pit stop, but everybody else in JS2 R has already been in and served a pit stop, whereas Julien Schell was the outstanding one. So the Pegasus Racing 29 will drop back into the pack. Simon Butler taking over from an awesome stint from Max Meyer, coming in with, well, a greater lead than the time penalty then had to serve. And remember, of course, different driver combinations, i.e. if you run with silver-silver, which is the maximum you can have, means a longer pit stop compared to a double bronze or a bronze-silver combo. So we will see cars like the 17 Pegasus and the number 7 LR Motorsport car have to sit in the pit lane for longer than, for instance, the number 10 of RLR M Sports. That
shook up things up, didn't it, at Le Mans? That's where the AM combination came to the fore.
Yeah.
And an AM crew taking the overall win in the blue ribbon event of the season. 48 car, meanwhile, powers on. This is Mania Stefan. Is he going to retake the lead here?
Over the line, and yes, he is, because the two cars that he was fighting with, George King only just exiting the pit lane now from his pit stop. 2 minutes 20, right on the marker. That's exactly the time that Minaya Stefan served as well. Minaya solo driving, as he usually does, but he's a silver as well. So if it's either a silver or a double silver, then it's a 2 minutes 20 second pit stop that has to be served, rather than a 1 minute 50 or thereabouts for the bronze-silver combos.
It's going to be a drive-through penalty for Jacques Nicolet for that contact that we saw, double contact in fact. As we see a change here, and I think this will be for the lead. 42 A&S Motorsports of Julien Le Mans goes through on Simon Butler, taking over from Max Meyer. Yeah, and this is the LR Motorsport crew, isn't it? Checking what it was clearly the car was cutting out.
So yes, concern around the engine bay, because it's either electrical or it's something that needs to be diagnosed once the car is back with the team in the paddock, but very difficult to work out precisely what's wrong in such a short time period. Only got 24 minutes of this race still to go, and the battle for fifth. New driver into the number one, Kevin Madsen versus Steve Zacchia, who took over in the pit stop as well. So he replaced Louis Rossi, and Zacchia should be a little bit quicker than Louis Rossi. Rossi's the bronze in that combo, whereas Zacchia vastly experienced, getting a good run on Kevin Madsen to pull off the overtake partway down the Mistral. Now, we've said this too early already this race, but no, that should be that for Steve Zacchia, who now turns right at senior corner and gains the position. Up to fifth place he goes. Oh,
trouble there for going wide. That's number 5 car, isn't it? That is Willy Alaoui, our first ever African driver in the Ligier European Series from Morocco. That's a bit of a whoopsie there. That pass by Steve Zacchia, by the way, came in a lap where he did the fastest, outright fastest middle sector of the race. Stefan, by the way, has got his foot down here, is looking to make his escape from teammate Bernardo Pinheiro in the number 60 car, handed over from George King. A lead gap 12.3 seconds.
And El Alaoui, you mentioned, 21 years old, silver rated as well, so should be pretty good now. He's taken over in that number 5 car, although did run a bit wide at the end of the lap. Nose to tail, a huge lock-up from Kevin Madsen in the number 1 Virage car. So he was getting close to Steve Zacchia in the braking area there, but the Le Dusab car now given a lot more breathing space because of that slight mistake from the American. And it just shows how quickly you can lose ground, having really pushed for several laps to gather it back up again. It's all lost in one corner.
Yeah, and we saw in the background there, finally out of the pit lane, is the number 7 car. LR Motorsport, Jacopo Mazza joins. 4 minutes on pit lane though. And they're way down the order now towards the back of the JS2 R train. Minaya Stefan leads 13 seconds, pulling away from Bernardo Pinheiro. Haytham Karagiuli is a further 15 seconds back, with Anthony Nara completing the top 4. So he's looking like he's going to be under pressure, and soon, from Steve Zacchia, who's pushing on in the number 50 car in 5th place. The Le Dusab car we saw going past, plus Kevin Madsen. And at the moment, other than Minaya Stefan, Steve Zacchia is the quickest man on circuit.
But there was also a good lap from a PB perspective for the number 11 car of Chung Chu Ting, and the number 1's a garage car running in 7th position for the Taiwanese driver. First time into Ligier, having done some karting last year, and then very little really of international stages before that. So pretty early on in his career, Chu Ting Chu.
It could be some trouble, by the way, Johnny, for the number 10 car. Remember, we saw that car handed to Simon Butler. He's just lost the lead.
Yes.
But car 10 reported to the stewards for not respecting the time added to the pit stop penalty. That was 10 seconds, remember, they should have taken.
Yes.
It looks as if they haven't fulfilled all of that. That's going to be a problem.
Okay, it'd be interesting to know what time they were trying to serve. It shouldn't be a 2:20 because they are a bronze and silver combination, so it shouldn't be one of the very long stops. Their pit stop was 2 minutes 14, so that suggests their usual pit stop should be a little more than 2 minutes and 4.
Yeah, my guess here is it's a matter of tenths and not 10.
Yeah, perhaps. So, but let's say they had to serve 2 minutes and 5, and they've come out with a 2:14, so just a second under. But as you say, that could very easily be a tenth under. And missed very little at all, but still, it has to be served.
George King there. Drama on lap 1. After that, it was a big push back and to take the lead before he finally came into pit. Been a bit of a star of this race. But he'll be ruining the fact that he was left to fight back after that contact. The 8 car, though, Mania Stefan is pulling away in the lead here, Johnny. It's under 20 minutes to go, and that lead is over 15 seconds. The battle, though, behind is for 4th. Between the 17 and the 50, because Steve Zackier has caught Anthony Nara and he's going more quickly as well than the 3 cars ahead.
New driver, by the way, into the 60 Virage car is Bernardo Pinheiro, who repelled. And speaking of Pinheiro, unfortunately, he spun like a pin there at the end of the lap at Virage du Pont. So back end just stepping out very slightly, and he tried to stop the slide, but there was just a bit too much power then, which continued the circulation, and the 60 car having to loop in the opposite direction to rejoin. And does that mean that Pinheiro has lost second place? No, he's still there, isn't he?
It doesn't. It about halves the gap. It was quite a big gap, 15 seconds. The gap has more or less halved, so that will give Haytham Caragiuli chasing a real incentive to push hard in these last 18 minutes.
Anthony Nara now in the 17, taking over from Dimitri Engelbert and battling hard with Steve Zackier. They're about to catch up on the sky blue Pegasus entry for Christoph Weber, 29. So it's Pegasus overtaking Pegasus there. Darting up the inside, and Zackier's all locked up. That might give him a better runner through turn 5. He can't quite get the inside line, though, on Anthony Nara's car.
I think he's got to get it done, because Kevin Madsen, and we saw Zackier go by, closed that gap as a result. This is going to be interesting now on the Mistral.
3 cars absolutely together. Anthony Nara, Steve Zackier pulls out a line on Nara, though, and actually Madsen might be able to go with him. So the sitting duck here is car 17 of Anthony Nara, who is certainly no slouch. Kevin Madsen might be able to do a double overtake on the Mistral.
Don't think he's quite got it there. He hasn't. Masterfully done by Steve Zackier. He'll have raced here plenty of times in his long career. Madsen is up for this fight, isn't he? Without a shadow of a doubt.
Did a couple of races in the Ligier European Series last year. Also dovetailing a season in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Championship, Kevin Madsen, in the AM category. And a really good sector time on this lap for Kevin Madsen, helped out by basically 2 cars giving him a tow down the Mistral straight. And
Steve Zackier's pace, by the way, is going to pull him closer and closer to Haytham Caragiuli. That gap under 4 seconds now for a podium position. So his progress up the order has been pretty stellar. Under 17 minutes to go, but there's plenty of time for more dramas here. That is that battling threesome. You can see that we've got Haytham Caragiuli there being closed in by Steve Zackier as they come through to start lap 21 with that 44 minutes elapsed. No sign that this action is going to be any less frenetic than it has been for the first 3 quarters of the race, Johnny. We've got more to come this weekend with another 60-minute race.
That's right, yep. Later on today, more Ligier European action, again live, exactly the same platform as you are enjoying this race. So the later race at the moment billed for a 1:20 local time start. The run for a full hour as well. The grid already settled. That was done relatively late on yesterday evening, about 5:30. So the grid's all set with possibly different starting drivers for each of the cars as well to really turn the second race on its head, if you like. Steve Zackier and Kevin Madsen still cannot be separated, and actually the car that is very much enjoying this in its door mirrors is Haytham Caragiuli, because there was pressure on Caragiuli's shoulders as well from these two. But they're more Well, actually, having said that, are they actually drawing in the 75 car?
Without doubt, they're closing in, and closing in fast. That was 4 seconds on the last lap. There will be a 2-second stop and go penalty for car 11 for not respecting the pit stop procedure, and a 5-second stop and go for car 95. So number 95 is the 4th placed in JS2 R ZTF performance car, Ligier, and the number 11 is the Monza garage car, 7th overall, in the hands of Chengding Zhu.
So Kuwaiti driver Haytham Karajouli, last year's JS2 R champion with RLR M Sport, now moves up to the quickest category in JS P4, but he is steadily being caught by the more experienced Steve Zakia. Haytham just 19 and started racing, what, only 4 years or so ago in Ginetta Juniors in the UK. They snaked their way through Verrerie, and Haytham Karajouli being caught by Zakia. But I'm impressed with Kevin Madsen's pace here, because Madsen is actually bronze rated, but he is mixing it very well and truly with a couple of silver drivers, and at times outpacing them.
Well, Madsen in a fight here for a podium position, and is driving like it's a fight. Zakia a wiggle through turn 2. So this is going to be interesting again as they come round to the Mistral Straights, and boy, these cars seem to be built for it, don't they? There they go. Zakia in the slipstream with Karajouli, who tries to break it, goes to the outside, the Frenchman.
Clearly they are out-and-out prototypes, these cars, but they don't have an awful lot of extraneous aero on them, so therefore if you get into the track, it's a little bit like the Peugeot was doing in the World Endurance Championship last weekend at Monza, because that's all ground effect. As soon as you get in the slipstream of a car in front, it sucks you along and increases your speed like the Billio. So a change has happened there. Karajouli slips behind Steve Zakia. That was perhaps the writing was always on the wall there, but can Kevin Magnussen get, Madsen I should say, not Kevin Magnussen, that's somebody entirely different. Kevin Madsen get through at Beausset, and he's almost pressurising Haytham Karajouli to a mistake, working their way through turns 11 and 12. And Madsen, the tidier line compared to Haytham Karajouli, I think more transfixed on the mirrors and where the Virage car is going to go next.
Tries to go up the inside, outside. Side by side here through the turn. I think Madsen's got this done, you know. He has. Neat and tidily done. But, well, they were fighting that out. Steve Zakia's made good his escape. Now, the next question is there time for him to do anything about Bernardo Pinheiro? I don't think he can. 12 seconds is the gap, with 12 minutes to go. That's some gap to bridge without help.
Madsen with a lock-up, though, that's not ideal at turn 1, and he's a little bit over the road as well at turn 2, but again, neatly controlled. Sometimes when you have a big squirrely moment such as this, it's very difficult then to arrest the speed and control the car. Kevin Madsen is new to Ligier's, remember, and that was a moment for Moulay El Alaoui again for the smart driving crew in car number 5. So a big lock-up chewing through his current set of tyres, and probably the set of tyres that we used in the first stint as well, although sometimes teams do change them.
So Manea Stefan's lead this race up to 30 seconds now. Steve Zakia is going to find 10 seconds in 11 minutes to try to wrestle second place from Bernardo Pinheiro. Kevin Madsen has not given this one up. Haytham Karajouli still in the fight as well. It's about Zakia, I think, at the moment, Johnny, and how quickly he can close that gap. I'm not sure he can do it quickly enough without help. I've seen a spin from Bernardo Pinheiro. He's going to take another one of those. A little bit more. That
wide, Haytham Karajouli. So Haytham having slipped to 5th position. I heard a squeal of tyres in the background. I wonder whether that was him trying to shave off the speed into the Duel de Beausset. Didn't quite get down to the required minimum speed there, but shouldn't lose a place, because Anthony Nara about 6 seconds further, or he was 6 seconds further back. He will have lost a couple of those seconds, I'm sure.
George King there. Rehydrated rather, as he watches his teammate Bernardo Pinheiro try to defend this second place, hard earned by George after the dramas of lap 1. And
Pinheiro again fairly early on in his racing career. He was still doing karting last year, but did a couple of races for Virage. Again, the problems for LR Motorsport creep back in again, and this is with different driver Jacopo Mazza now at the wheel. But remember, the 7 car struggled for locomotion earlier on in the race. It's unexplained, this, and I don't think the team quite know what the issue is, but Mazza feeling the drama just as Riccitelli was.
And Mazza had almost climbed his way up on the tail of the JS P4 field. Yeah, the flags at turn 14 to protect that car well off the racing line there. With under 10 minutes to go, can he get that car moving, or do we need some other further intervention here?
Steve Zakier putting a lap on the number 42 JS2 R, which is the class leader in the hands of Julien Le Mans. Le Mans taking a very good result at Le Mans last month for ANS Motorsport as well, winning his category. It's almost up the inside there. Kevin Madsen was able to pick off Le Mans, but thought discretion was the better part there into senior corner. I can only wholeheartedly agree. You do not want to have contact midway through turn 8, spearing probably both cars off. Yeah,
good run here from Kevin Madsen. It was overtaken relatively early in his stint from Steve Zakier, but he's stuck in there, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. But it's heads-up driving as well. It's not, you know, fully committed with not acknowledging the risk, I suppose. Yes, he's got great pace on other silver-rated drivers in the race, so that's definitely encouraging coming back to the Ligier European Series. I said he was relatively inexperienced. Well, he is on these tracks. Ran at Le Mans on the 2 races that supported the 24 hours last year, and that's what gave him a taste for the race. And safety car is out now. We don't know why. Oh, because of the 7 car.
It will be for the 7.
LR Motorsport car stranded on the start-finish straight. Obviously, race control have given that a few laps to see whether the LR Motorsport car sparks back into life. Now, this is not going to help Minea Stefan, who currently has a 34-second lead, or Julien Le Mans, 25 seconds to the good over David Rodrigo.
It could, though, help Steve Zakier. If we get back to green flag racing, he seems to have the pace at the moment. Kevin Madsen, too, will fancy his chances. The other team this will not help, by the way, is the 3rd place. There it is. Just died, didn't it, again? 3rd time. Is the 3rd place team in JS2R, Simon Butler, with a 40-second lead that will just evaporate. So 3rd to 4th.
Yeah, so the 7 car will need to be retrieved. Hopefully that is a relatively quick recovery for the crews based not too far away at Virage Dupont and that whole area. Here comes the safety car to pick up Minea Stefan. Fingers crossed. Minea is just now heading through the final sequence of corners at turns 13 and 14. And we'll see the safety car with its lights illuminated. So we'll start to back off. I did wonder whether there might be the option of leaving that LR Motorsport car there, but the problem is if you are battling with a car at very close quarters, in fact several of them, and you pull out a line, you would fully expect the road to be clear, and to have a stranded car there, especially with there's no real escape with a concrete wall immediately to its right. Race control given very little option, but what it does do is change the complexion of this race very late on, and it might be something like a 2 or even 1 lap dash to the finish.
Could well be. In the days of yore, will be a relatively simple way to recover that car, because he's not far away from where the old pit lane entry used to be.
True.
But that is now a very solid concrete block.
Some pit lanes do have a little Armco fence part way down, and that's in case somebody stalls on a standing start grid, and that car can be cleared very quickly. But I'm not sure whether Paul Ricard has one.
We don't, because if you remember, we got that breadth of grass between the pit wall, if you like, and the garages themselves. That grass famously, initially, came from Biggin Hill.
Oh, wow.
That's a legacy of the days when Billy Eccleston was around this facility.
So what, they were digging up the airfield?
It looks that way.
Okay. Sure, we're expanding, building a 2nd runway.
Not sure what Bernie was hiding, but the grass is here rather wide.
All cars can speed up and close the gap between the cars in front and the safety car.
So close the gap, indicating to me that they want to go for a quick restart here. And obviously cars trailing a long way back on the Mistral is not helping out the collection of cars. It's predominantly virage machines on the Mistral straight there, all three of them.
Well, that is our 1, 2, 3, 4 as we see the number 7 car being recovered to pit lane. So we're going to get back going relatively soon, possibly as early at the end of this lap.
All cars close the gap. All cars must close the gaps.
So we have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars. It's back to the light blue of Anthony Nara. So that is first to 6th.
Yeah, we've got another batch of 4 cars rapidly closing on that. You should see them in the background of this shot any moment now.
Chu Chun-Ting in the Monza garage car, effectively the instruction being sent to him. But it's Farid Ali who has, he's a couple of laps down now. So he's being told to pick up the pace, and that will bring another batch of cars much closer. But the difficulty here is that the JS2Rs aren't necessarily all going to be with the lead pack when we get underway, and the gap for Julien Le Mans back to David Rodrigo is still a healthy 21 seconds. So perhaps the safety car will be helping him in the lead of JS2R. Everybody else rather frustrated that they're not now within touching distance, although Simon Butler is right with Rodrigo for second position.
In this lap.
The safety car is coming in this lap, so we are going to have just under 4 minutes of action, and well, anything could change here, couldn't it? Maria Stefan, who looked to be cruising to a win, has got Bernardo Pinheiro right behind him and charging Steve Zacchia. Well, he's got the pace to get involved here for the win, Johnny, without a shadow of doubt. Kevin Madsen, seen getting fighty. It's a green flag.
And a lot more cars on that line now after the safety car peeled off. Best lap so far, George King, at a 2 minutes flat. So we're going to get this lap, the start of this lap, and one more after that, I reckon. As now into the final sequence of corners to restart the race. No overtaking, strictly speaking, before the white start and finish line, though. And it is Maria Stefan who gets the better run out of Virage Dupont for this restart. And nowhere near is Bernardo Pinheiro. Steve Zacchia looking to try and close the gap as well, but that hasn't quite worked.
He left a big gap there. I'm not quite sure what Steve was doing there.
No, nor
seemed to be caught napping.
Scratching my head a little bit there. Maybe he didn't expect the restart because it was so early on.
Haytham Caragiuli having a very wide moment, indeed.
So did Steve Zacchia expect another lap behind the safety car? But you've got to be ready to race every time you come through those sequence of 12, 13 and 14. There's a lock-up and a real do-and-die manoeuvre there. And unfortunately, it has not worked out for Kevin Madsen. He's been leading up to that for a number of laps prior to the safety car, trying to overtake Steve Zacchia. But there wasn't quite the gap, nor did he shave off enough speed to pull off the successful overtake. So he's going to lose a position, all told, to Anthony Nara now in the Pegasus 17, who's got ahead, and Haytham Caragiuli should be ahead of Kevin Madsen as well. So, I mean, we've seen that happen a number of times over the years, actually, and it feels like you should be able to do that, but look at the despair from the Team Virage engineers.
It's the compression. There's just, he couldn't get the turn, get the car to turn. It was in the compression, and just the point where you need to turn in, there is nothing. There is no way. And the car goes around. He's lucky, actually, not to hit Steve Zacchia in that manoeuvre.
The curbed area there is significantly lower than the legal bit of track, if you like. So there's a big divot there. And as soon as you end up in that, if you're carrying a great bit of speed, which Kevin was still, then very easily the car can rotate. There's still the chance that Kevin Madsen could pick off Haytham Caragiuli and possibly Anthony Nara before the end of the race. He'll have the rest of this lap plus one more. And remember, it's 60 minutes, and whenever the checkered flag then is shown at the end of that 60 minutes to greet the leader, that is the end of the race. Very defensive indeed from Anthony Nara. Haytham Caragiuli, meanwhile, puts the car in the middle of the road, the 75. But Kevin Madsen is eyeing the two of them up here for potentially a move he pulled off a couple of laps ago. Meantime, Haytham Caragiuli fancies fourth position over Anthony Nara. So 3 cars completely as one. There's a big squirm from Nara, but he got the car sufficiently slowed into Verrery. and the order remains the same, but is set to change at any moment, Graham.
It is indeed. Hayton Carajuli saw the moment there for Anthony Nara. Goes the outside here. Kevin Madsen wants part of this as well. Can the Kuwaiti driver get this done? Running out of time, running out of real estate, running out of just about everything. This is the battle for fourth position. Keeping an eye on the gaps ahead. I think it seems imminent there on pace ahead of them. So this is the battle on track at the moment to watch.
Chu Chung-Ting is involved in this as well, though, right behind Kevin Madsen. We haven't yet mentioned the Monza Garage car. Talked about their drivers. Wei Yu Wang is the other as well, who did the opening stint, but in a very un-Monza Garage type livery with the blue, white and red. Fourth car in this sequence and could yet gain a couple of spots. Madsen side by side with Hayton Carajuli.
Watch the Taiwanese driver up the inside though. Could he get both of them here? If he does, that's the move of the race. Madsen has gone past Carajuli. Where's it going to end up with? Carajuli side by side. Will, I think, just retain that place? Yes, he will.
Into Bose, he's a bit wide though, so Chu almost to the inside, not quite. Doesn't in fact gain any places, so it was Kevin Madsen getting ahead of Hayton Carajuli, and now Madsen running out of corners in order to squirm ahead of Anthony Nara. The checkered flag is about to be shown though to Minea Stefan for another victory this year. Minea Stefan having to really keep his thoughts to himself to kind of bat off various different moments there and challenges from various cars side by side as well into the final corner between Anthony Nara and Kevin Madsen. No way through there though for the American on the Frenchman, and it will be Nara to finish in fourth place behind Bernardo Pinheiro, the car he shares with George King. So it's a Team Virage 1-2 ahead of Les Deux Sabres Steve Zakia in the 50 car, sharing that car with Louis Rossi.
Julien Lenoir does come through to take the JS2 R win for NS Motorsport, the 42 car, and also home David Rodrigo in the LR Motorsport number 43, waiting for Simon Butler to come in. He does so now and completes the top three with RLR Motorsports number 10 car. Well, that lacked for nothing in terms of action.
Terrific race, and really from the off it developed into a nip and tuck affair, particularly with the then leaders Minea Stefan and Simone Riccitelli. And I did think actually that the battle may well fade, but then I looked down at my entry list and realised no, Minea Stefan would stay on board during the pit stop, and Riccitelli would be switched at LR Motorsport for a fellow silver driver. Unfortunately though, for the Italian-Swiss combination, they did not have the mechanics in terms of mechanical favour of the number 7 car, stopping, as you mentioned, 3 times around the lap, and as yet pretty unknown the reasons why by the team. There is sufficient time in the day now between this moment at 10 o'clock just gone and 20 past 1 when we're next racing for hopefully LR Motorsport to repair that car, but not the mindset that you want to be going into that second race knowing that the car could cut out at any moment. Riccitelli and Matza winning their class, let us not forget, at Le Mans last month and finishing second on the road to Lance Fenton and Kevin Madsen. So it's a Virage 1-2 form of Minea Stefan on the solo drive, George King and Bernardo Pinheiro second. A very tattered tyre there on the trolley.
I think that was probably from the lap 1 incident with the 2 cars leading the race. We saw the car on pit lane for what I'm sure was a shredded tyre.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Grins all round for George King. It could have been one better, of course. They only lost out on the win by 3.3 seconds. But a strange restart because Bernardo Pinheiro wasn't quite with Minea Stefan. And then there was an even larger gap back to Steve Zakia, who in the end had to scrap away with Anthony Nara, Kevin Madsen, Hayton Carajuli and Chu Chung-Ting as well, with a really good dice in those closing stages for the positions just off the podium.
Well, that was 60 minutes of raw racing action. Great news is we've got another 60 minutes later this weekend for this 18-car grid. Better news still, we've got 2 hours of racing action for the Michelin Le Mans Cup's 42 cars. And even better than that, we've got another 42 cars for the European Le Mans Series and 4 hours of action on Sunday. You can catch all of that absolutely live, absolutely free across the YouTube channels for each of those series.
So 60 minutes at, well, this early on in the morning, pretty baking temperatures, just over 26 degrees Celsius, and a move right at the start from Minea Stefan that didn't quite come off on the 0-4 HB Racing by Monza Garage car, driven at the time by Daniele Casaniga. Sadly, Casaniga's time out front was to be severely limited after contact with the 60 car of George King, both spearing off at senior corner and off into the scenery, and Casaniga's car eventually would pit and into retirement. But hopefully the HP by Monza Garage car will be back out for race 2 at 1:20 this afternoon. A good getaway initially from, well, terrific getaway from Max Meyer, opening a gap up to nearly 15 seconds just prior to the pit stop, as continuing to scrap at the sharp end of the order, Minea Stefan and the LR Motorsport car of Simone Riccitelli. There was also really good fighting in the JS2 R category between Jacques Nicolet and David Rodrigo. Unfortunately, both would make contact on a couple of separate occasions. There was more contact to come, and more significant contact for Jacques Nicolet in the number 86 JS2R. Nicolet in front here, ahead of David Rodrigo, the Italian. And in the slipstream as well, CTF Performance. The 7 car, first of all, conking out at turns 3, 4 and 5. Did get going again, but having lost a couple of places. Minea Stefan, though, eventually the race winner after his pit stop. He would come out of the final corner with a clear road in front of him. LR Motorsport very puzzled indeed as to what was going on. Perhaps a misfire. They need to replace the plugs, but the 7 car got more issues. I'm guessing just an extension of the initial problem, and that was with Jacopo Mazza at the wheel, but it would bring out a late race safety car to really bunch up the field and close the gap for Minea Stefan, who was asked again to extend the gap. For some reason, Steve Zacchia was a long way back in amongst this team Virage party at the sharp end. Virage at the time running 1st, 2nd and 4th, despite the lock-up for Portuguese driver Bernardo Pinheiro, and a do-or-die manoeuvre there from Kevin Matheson that didn't come off into Virage de l'Hôtel. Virage mechanics screaming and shouting because they were potentially going to get a 1-2-3 finish, of course, if Matheson had managed to get in front of Steve Zacchia in the closing stages. They did, though, get a 1-2 for Romanian driver Minea Stefan, finishing ahead of Bernardo Pinheiro, sharing that car with George King. It's a 1st and a 2nd place finish, and a 4th indeed for the Polish squad. Team Virage, Minea Stefan, their Romanian talent, though, wins after 28 laps by 3.3 seconds over the Pinheiro and King Team Virage car. Steve Zacchia and Louis Rossi finishing in 3rd, ahead of Anthony Nara and Dimitri Engelbert. Lance Fenton and Kevin Matheson, a really good drive from Matheson particularly. Julien Lemoine with another victory in the JS2Rs for ANS Motorsport, car 42, just ahead of David Rodrigo and Simon Butler and Max Meyer after that tremendous opening stint from the 17-year-old Spaniard. And they get a podium as their reward. So more racing from the Ligier European Series a little bit later on. That's the other side of the qualifying sessions for Le Mans Cup and ELMS. We will see you at about 1:15 local time.
Remise des prix de cette première course de ce Ligier European Series ici au Castellet avec ceux qui vont monter dans quelques instants sur les marches de podium respectives avec la catégorie du JS P4 au classement général overall avec ceux qui terminent troisième, l'équipe des deux arbres que nous allons accueillir avec notamment Steve Zacchia et Louis Rossi, troisième. Ils vont être rejoints par les seconds, l'équipe du team Virage avec Bernardo Pinheiro et George King. Et à nouveau, un équipage du team Virage sur la plus haute marche du podium de cette catégorie du JSP4 au classement général avec Minia Stéphane que nous allons retrouver sur la plus haute marche du podium. Voilà pour eux et en l'hommage bien évidemment à l'équipage et au team vainqueur. L'hymne bien évidemment représentant l'équipe. Accompagné par bien évidemment le team manager. Voilà pour l'équipe du team Virage sur la plus haute marche du podium que l'on peut bien sûr applaudir sous l'œil bien sûr de Bibendum. La remise bien évidemment des trophées pour les vainqueurs bien sûr et leurs dauphins. Applaudissements bien évidemment du public ici présent. Voilà pour les vainqueurs et leurs dauphins dans cette catégorie JSP4 au classement général. Et vous avez, je crois, messieurs, un petit peu de boisson aphrodisiaque qui vous attend bien évidemment au pied du podium. Voilà pour la douche. Après, plus tard. Bon, d'accord. Parce qu'on a encore une deuxième course tout à l'heure. On va pas salir, je pense, les combinaisons. Merci à vous. On vous retrouvera avec plaisir pour la deuxième épreuve tout à l'heure. Toujours catégorie JSP4 que nous allons bien sûr enchaîner dans quelques instants avec la catégorie Pro-Am. On va retrouver dans tous les cas sur la pleine marche du podium Steve Zacchia et Louis Rossi représentant l'équipe des deux arbres sur la plus haute marche du podium catégorie AM. Les voici. Venez nous retrouver messieurs. À nouveau un podium pour vous. La plus haute marche désormais pour la catégorie bien sûr JSP4.